continuing our work with solving proportions, and we're going to look at two new methods beyond using mental math, which was the first method that they introduced to us in our lesson 5.3 on writing proportions. So method one was to find the rule, basically, and we used those arrows, and I asked you questions like how does 3 become 12, and you would have said times 4. So you use that same rule to figure out the variable in the other half of the proportion. But that method is only usable when the numbers are compatible, and unfortunately in the real world, numbers just aren't compatible all of the time. So method 2 is a method you've been using to solve equations, and that's the multiplication property of equality. And to use this strategy, you multiply both sides by the number under the variable. And this only works, of course, when the variable is in the numerator. But because in the real world the variable isn't always in the numerator, method 3 is the most common method to solving proportions, and that's the cross products property. Some of you have already started doing this just naturally in 5.3 because you liked it better than finding the rule, and that's when you cross multiply and divide. Today they're going to ask that you use both, even if you like one more than the other, just so you have practice. So if they say solve by using multiplication, we have 5 over 7 equals x over 21. So I'm going to multiply each side by the number under the variable, in this case 21. And the 21's cancel out over here, and as you can see, I simplified before multiplying. 21 and 7 have a factor of 7 in common, so I divided each by 7, and that left me with 3 times 5, which is 15 over 1, or just 15. So we did this one together. W over 6 equals 6 over 9. I multiply, it says use multiplication, so I multiply each side by the number under the variable, 6. This time I just did the multiplying instead of simplifying first, which I could have done as well with 6 and 9. They share a factor of 3. But 6 times 6 is 36, 9 times 1 is 9, and then 36 divided by 9 is 4. You worked on these. This time you multiply each side by 15. Because these numbers are large, I just decided to simplify ahead of time, but you would have had 180 over 10 if you did the multiplying. And either way, 180 divided by 10 or 36 divided by 2, you get 18. In this one, y over 6 equals 2 over 4. You multiply each side by 6, and I just chose to multiply this time. 12 divided by 4 is 3. If you chose to simplify, these share a factor of 2, so you would have had 6 over 2, which still would have given you the answer of 3. Now the cross products, we started using cross products to decide whether two ratios are a proportion, because cross products are equal in a proportion. So to use cross products, you start the same way. You multiply. So x times 10 is 10x, 8 times 7 is 56, and then divide, which is that writing I had in red. Cross multiply, then divide, and for here you get x equals 5 and 6/10. So a decimal is okay as the answer, because that's what number would solve this proportion. It doesn't have to be a whole number. And same here, 9 times 17 is 153, y times 3 is 3y, so cross multiply, then divide, and you get 51. This one we did in class together, and I wanted to do this because there is one like this on your practice that goes along with this lesson. And z plus 1 is a unit. There's these parentheses that you really have to add in. And when you do that and you cross multiply, you end up having to do the distributive property. So 15 times z plus 15, because 15 times 1 is 15, equals 40 times 6, which is 240. And then because this is a multiplying and adding, on this side you do the order of operations backwards. So you undo the adding by subtracting 15, and then you get 15z equals 225. Now you can divide and you get z equals 15. You did these, cross multiply, and I know you can find the rule, 7 becomes 28 by multiplying by 4, but it does ask you to use cross products, so you have to use cross products. 7x equals 56, and then divide by 7, you get 8. Same here, I know you can find the rule, 12 becomes 6 by dividing by 2, but you have to use cross products. So you get 12y equals 30, and then you divide by 12, and you get 2.5. Then we looked at this example, and it really was more just drawing your attention to the fact that they first italicized this word, and it says your total is 750. How many kilometers did you drive? And most of you would have just looked at this chart and said, oh, 7.5, 100 kilometers, or maybe you would have even said 100 miles, not realizing that the units don't match. So you're actually having to convert between units, which is a science skill that gets taught in math. And the way you do that is you take the given measurement, in this case it was 100 miles, and you multiply that to the new unit, which for us is kilometers, and you divide it by the starting unit, which was miles. Not the starting number 100, but the unit. Miles. The numbers that you put in front of this come from knowing the conversions between the standard system and the metric system. And the way to do that is to just go to Google. And if they want you to go from inches to centimeters, that's what you type in, inches to centimeters, and up these conversions come. However, like, you could just type in 7.5 and it would tell you the same number, but that is not the work. It's a great way to check your work. So you still need to know how to set it up. So the given measurement times the new unit divided by the old unit, and if you set it up correctly, you should always have a 1 in the bottom. The inch units cancel out, so I multiply across the top and I get 19 and 5/100ths. This one, notice I stopped at the hundredths place, and hundredths rather, and I did this because that's what the directions said. So the 5 changes that 3 to a 4, so it's 0.04 ounces. So given times new equals 4 ounces. And then when you did these on your own, and you did a nice job. Given times new, because you had to round, gives you 2 and 12/100ths quarts. Given times new, this is a 0, so it doesn't change anything, equals 13 and 12/100ths feet. So that's just a quick glimpse at our lesson today.